Thank you, Eddie. I'm glad you like the level of detail. For a game engine, the Unreal Engine is an amazing engine. Epic Games have really created something really amazing with Unreal 4, with UE4. But even with a game engine, I still have to limit how much detail I put into anything, simply because I can't overload it with polys and textures. It's a game engine. But it does an amazing job, don't get me wrong. You can really high poly, high detail, high texture stuff. But it's not the same as when I do a rendering, say using View, Eon View, which is when I do my environment renderings, that's usually what I use. So if I go back to my gallery here really quickly, and we look at some of the images, these have been rendered in View, and so the level of detail in this is a lot higher poly than the game engine could cope with. So yeah. Oh, damn it, it's doing an autosave. Right. I'm just going to find where it's doing that and turn it off, because it's really annoying me. No, Kedza, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, guy. Kedza. Guys, like I said, know that I'm terrible with your usernames. Yes, I am using PBR materials. I generally will use, I'm using Substance Painter for a lot of the asset work I'm doing with the Unreal Engine. But my preferred paint program is actually Mari. Simply because I come from more of a film background, and Mari is used in film a lot because you can go use really huge textures in Mari. Substance Painter is limited to 8K textures. Whereas Mari, you can go, there is no limit really in Mari. But yeah, I am using PBR materials that have been made in Substance Painter. Just Keds, okay, Keds. The R was because Twitch needed at least 5 letters. Keds, okay, I'll remember that. Keds. Yeah, so I'm using PBR materials made from Substance Painter for the Unreal level we're working on at the moment. No, I'm just, I just want to turn off this autosave. Where is it? Where do they keep their autosave here? I turned it off once before and I can't remember. Keds is saying you got to work on his PBR material, still very unexperienced with it. Substance Painter is a great program for doing your texturing with PBR materials, and you don't have to make them. Substance Designer, you can design your materials. Substance Painter, you just use them. And so you can download a lot of substances from Algorithmic's website to use when you're texturing up your models. Eddie's saying, do you have an insane computer with 64 gigs of RAM? No, I don't. I'll tell you guys what I'm using. I'm using, oh, thank you for following 2 Keds. I didn't notice that. And the Hambone, thank you for the follow too. I appreciate it, guys, when you follow me on Twitch. No, my PC is not an insane computer. I'm using an Intel i7 2600K, so it's a Sandy Bridge processor. It's 4 generations behind the new Kaby Lake or whatever is out at the moment. So it's an i7 2600K, so 4 core 8 thread. I have 32 gigs of RAM, simply because I do a lot of rendering work for the studio, and the more memory for rendering the better. I use a GTX 1080 video card, which I find works quite well. Everything I throw at it, it can handle without a problem. Aside from that, I just have the standard SSDs and hard drives for my storage, so nothing spectacular. And remember, guys, while I'm working, I'm also streaming with OBS, so the computer's dealing with quite a bit when I work and stream on Twitch, and it handles it all without a problem. So yeah, you don't need an outrageously fast PC to do 3D, not nowadays anyway. anything from a Sandy Bridge processor on, whether that's an i5 or an i7, should be fine. You don't need 32 gigs of RAM like I have, unless you're doing really large renders. So 8 gigs is probably okay. 16 gigs would be better, but 8 gigs I'd say is minimum. So an 8 gig of memory, anything from an i5 and an i7 Sandy Bridge processor or later, or the AMD equivalent, and you'll be fine. Like I said, I have no problems, and I stream to Twitch at the same time as I do all this work, and I've got Max open, Substance open, Unreal open. I usually have Photoshop open at the same time, and yeah, I don't have a problem. So don't think you need to spend thousands on a PC to do 3D. You don't. That's just Intel marketing trying to sell you new processors, or Nvidia marketing if they want you to upgrade your video card. Although I do have a 1080, so. The video card is more important than the processor nowadays. That's from my experience anyway. A better video card is always preferred. If you're on a tight budget and you want to do 3D and you don't have a lot of money to spend, like I said, then I would upgrade the graphics card before I upgrade the processor, because the graphics card is more important nowadays. So graphics card, memory, and then processor in that order. Now, where are these loading and saving? Here we go. Where are we? Autosave, turn off. Alright, there we go. Again, I turn autosave off on all the programs that I use, whether it's Max or Eon View or Mari or whatever. Simply because I don't like being interrupted when I'm working with the autosave going on. So that just means that I do have to remember to save regularly. So, you know, I turn it off because it annoys me, but don't suggest you turn it off unless you remember to save all the time. Kids, biggest renders are also GPU based. The last CPU based ones are all moving to GPU based as well. So GPUs are indeed more important on the long. Yep, that's right. And that goes for V-Ray as well, which is what the renderer that I use generally to do my AutoSwiz work. I use V-Ray, and it has a real-time renderer now that works on the GPU, and you can actually set it up to use the GPU and CPU at the same time to do a render. So definitely GPU is much more important now. Yep. So yeah, that's why I would suggest if you have a tight budget. And you want to upgrade something, upgrade the GPU first. Because remember, if you find that it doesn't do it after you upgrade the GPU and then you wait and get a bit more money, you can take the GPU out and plug it into the new motherboard. So you're not wasting money by upgrading your GPU. Because you can reuse it. Which is why I would suggest you do that first, as opposed to the processor. It's just Intel marketing that wants you to upgrade your processor all the time. It's Intel wanting to make more money, and that's fair enough. You know, that's what they're in business. They want to make money. They try and encourage people to upgrade their processor every 12 months when Intel decide they want to release a new version of the same thing, basically. Because the processor, the Intel processors haven't changed a lot since Sandy Bridge, which is the one that I've got. Sure, there's like a 10% improvement in speed every generation, but if you've got to spend $1,000 for a new motherboard, new RAM, new processor, for a 10 to 15% increase in speed, it's just not good value for money. You're better off spending that $1,000 on a really kick-ass video card and keeping the same processor. That's worked for me. That's what I do. I probably will update the processors soon because they're up to their 8th generation, or they're just about to release their 8th generation Intel. But I'll only do that if the rumors are correct in that the new processors have increased cores. That's the only reason I would ever suggest you update the processor, is if you can get more cores. Because more cores are good for things like video editing and rendering. And the rumor is that they're going to be upgrading the cores from 4 and 8 to 6 and 12. So an extra 4 cores, 4 threads would help me anyway with my video work and with rendering. So That's the only time I would upgrade my processor. And see, Intel haven't been doing that with every generation after Sandy Bridge. They've kept the cores always the same. And the only reason they're doing it now is because AMD have released their Threadripper CPUs, which have massive amount of cores. If AMD didn't do that, Intel wouldn't give you any more cores for your money. They'd still try and sell you a new processor every year. It's basically 10% better than what the last one was, but still want to charge you, $400 for a new processor. So, but the rumor is they're going to be updating the amount of cores in the new Gen Series 8 processors from Intel. We'll see. And if they do that, then I'll probably upgrade. Let's pull this one forward a bit more. And let's pull these up a little bit more. So all the assets you see here, KEDs, are actually done. Were textured using Substance Painter. Nearly all of the assets actually you see in the level here have been done that way. They've all been created in Substance Painter, or textured, I should say, in Substance Painter. With the exception of the plaster work on the ceiling, I actually did that in Photoshop, but everything else is Substance Painter. The wood panels here, they weren't done in Painter either, they were done in Photoshop. But all of the railings and things were done in Painter. Alright, let's scale this one up so it's the right size. Again, this one, the axis is off on this, so... Again, I'm just going outside the building to make sure that none of my assets are sticking through the window. Kids says, yeah, you notice considering how detailed they are, they just got to get into more depth. Yeah, do check out Substance Painter. Algorithmic made it, particularly if you're going to make a game or you're going to work with the Unreal Engine. It was made around the same time that Epic released the Unreal Engine, so they were both sort of designed to work really well together. You can use it in the Unity engine too, Substance painted stuff, that is. But I know that Algorithmic released Substance Painter about the same time that Epic released UE4 initially. Sorry, I'm just going to try and read your message here, Keds. You notice, considering how detailed that they are, you've got to get more in depth on how they're made. You heard Substance Painter, though. We'll give a look into it. Okay, yeah. Do check out Substance Painter. It's a great program, particularly for physically based materials. That's what it was made to create, and it does create some really nice, you can create some really nice artwork with it, models with it, textures with it. My last project on stream was that Baroque Garden Terrace, which you see in the banner. That's a render from that last project that I did on Twitch, and I actually used Mari for that, but Yeah, and like I said, Substance Painter is a great program. Substance Designer is a great program too. I don't use that program though. Simply because I don't really have the time to be mucking around with making my own substances when I can just download them from Algorithmic and use them. But Substance Designer is the program if you want to make these substances that you then take into Painter to use on your objects. So I do know that Algorithmic have an indie program, so where you can buy the program quite cheaply that way. If you're not a studio, you know, you could, but you still want to make a game and release it and sell it. You can buy an indie license at Algorithmic for the software, and it's not outrageously expensive. It's quite reasonable. Whereas Mari, on the other hand, is very expensive if you want to buy it to use commercially. But again, you can download a free version from the Foundry's website, which is fully functional and completely free. You just can't make anything commercially. You can't sell any of your work using it. That's the only restriction they place on it. But it's certainly completely free to download and use. So Substance Painter has the advantage in that it's relatively, it's not outrageously expensive to buy, and if you want to make something you want to sell. Alright, now I'm just looking at that to see if we can reuse it for the sides here as well. Let's see, let's give it a go, why not? Eddie says Lovecraft 100%. I'm not actually sure what you mean, Eddie. Do you mean H.P. Lovecraft, the author? Or you're just saying you loved craft? You love doing craft work, or H.P. Lovecraft? I mean, I don't know if you guys have seen he wrote a series of books called Reanimator and Bride of Reanimator and all that sort of thing, which are horror movies. And some of them are pretty good. They're old now, but still good, still fun to watch. So I love H.P. Lovecraft stuff. He created some really freaky, deaky looking stuff. Alright, I'm just going to deselect that, reselect it and duplicate it. Now before I actually rotate it into place, I think I'm going to alter it outside here. It'll just be easier than when I start rotating it if I want to scale things. So I'm going to scale the top in. Again, my axes are also, I've got to remember which one's which. There we go. Let's scale this one in as well. Alright, let's rotate this around and move it in. We're going to have to make some adjustments, I'm sure, when we get it over the window frame itself. Whoa, I do that every time. I mean to move the camera and end up moving the actual object. Just did it again. Now I may just do a rotation on this and turn off angle snap so I can get it a little bit more fine control. and I'm going to scale up that top piece a little bit more. Should be all right. Okay, let's duplicate it one more time for the other side. Now, what I'm noticing here is there's obviously a slight difference between the position of this window and the position of this one in relation to the middle one. So while we have the wood joining here, we don't have it joining here. And that looks inconsistent. That's not quite right. So we're going to have to try and fix that little problem there in that corner. Now we can't move this window out. We can't move this one in. We're going to have to try and fudge it with the border. So I think the easiest and best way to do this was probably going to be to scale the central window out a bit. Sniper says you must shoot off today. No problem. Yep, I'll be back on tomorrow or later again next week, Sniper. So thanks for popping in and saying hi. You have a good one. So I think, yeah, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to scale this out past the edge of the window. You're not going to notice it because of the frame. I'm going to see if I can move these in a bit. There we go. I'll move this one in a little bit as well. Are you trolling me, Eddie? That's fixed up that problem we're having here where the window wasn't completely, either side window weren't completely lined up with the middle window. I just wanted to move the frame so that everything looked like it lines up correctly. It still doesn't, but you can't see it because the frame hides the fact that the windows aren't lining up 100% the same. I'm just looking at the bottom of the frames here. I may rotate this one around a little bit more. And I may move this one in a little bit more. Just gotta be careful I don't stick it through the window like that. Alright, now I actually want to place a curtain here as well to try and frame up this window a bit better, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the wall, whether I'll leave that as like, it's like this white plaster I've got here on the inner wall. It just looks a bit clean though. We may tackle that after we get the window frame all tidied up. So once I place cushions and things in here, then I'll look at that white plaster wall and see if I need to dirty it up a bit, which I probably will. Just because, like I say to you guys, nothing is ever completely clean. If we look at our floor here, there are parts of it that are dirtied up. I don't know if you can just see it there, but it's not just a straight wood texture. When I created it in Substance Painter, pardon me, I specifically went through and added dirt marks and discolouring of the wood here and there to make it look more realistic. I've done that with all the floors that you'll see everywhere. They're not completely clean, there's dirt on them. And that's because nothing in real life is ever pristinely clean. It just doesn't happen. Even if you get there and scrub it, it's not going to be ever pristinely clean. There's always going to be variation in a texture in real life. And so to make anything look realistic, make sure it doesn't look too clean. It's really important. But I do want to bring up one of the window curtains. So what I'm going to do is, I do have a blueprint made, but I don't want a full curtain like we see here. I just want like half a curtain. So instead of bringing the blueprint in, I'm just going to pull in one of the curtains themselves, which is this one here. We can either go with the same pattern we're using here, or we can go with this more decorative pattern we're using here on the curtain. I'm just trying to work out, as far as visuals for the room goes, whether a decorative piece here would look better than the plain. By decorative I mean one of these sort of curtains here. They're blue and gold. That's no big deal. If we don't like the blue and gold, we can always swap it out for the... Actually, a plain, the same colour curtain here is probably a better match. Although you could make it a feature, window. Yeah. Let's pull in one of the decorative curtains, simply because it has tassels on it and it's a nicer looking curtain, so... This one here. I've got to decide which way I want it to face. Probably this way. Hey Kenu, good to see you. Sorry about last week, guys. Like regulars to my channel, I couldn't stream because of work. But follow my Twitter page at PhilDoes3D because I always post when I'm live, even though my schedule doesn't change. But if I can't stream, I will always post to my Twitter account telling you why I can't stream. So yeah, again, apologies for last week, guys. I couldn't stream because I had to go away for work. But I do post to my Twitter account at PhilDoes3D. If I post when I go live, and I post if I can't go live. You'll always know if I'm not on streaming why. So just keep that in mind if you want to know. My schedule doesn't change usually though. It's Monday, Tuesday, 5 p.m. In US time, Pacific US time. It'll only change if an emergency comes up like it did with work where I had to go interstate. So my apologies, guys, for not being able to stream. I'm just going to go into my blueprints here because this curtain doesn't have the tassels and I want the one with the tassels, so... Oh, no, I don't do that. So I'm going to pull this one in. And again, this is a blueprint with tassels, and the reason it's made in a blueprint is because I can reuse the same tassels over and over again. If I zoom in here and have a close-up of it, you see all these tassels on the end. They're all individual. It's instancing the one tassel many times around the curtain. So instead of adding all those tassels as one object to the curtain, I just use one and instance it all the way around the outside of the curtain then. Saves on memory and texture usage and draw calls. But it's good to see you, Kédo. And again, like I said, my apologies for all my regulars that I wasn't streaming last week. I couldn't, so. Concept Dev. It says the chandelier I saw is killing him. It looks so high detail. Does that involve instancing of the crystals? You're talking about the one in this room here. Instancing of the crystals is the way to do it. This one is not done that way. The curtain you see me working on here is instanced in through the blueprint. So all of these tassels are instances. So we create an instance static mesh and an array, and we add them in our array. That's for the curtain, but no, the chandelier is not done that way. It should be. That's the best way to do it, but no, I haven't done it that way here. So no, the crystals here aren't instanced. They are using a proper glass material. So if we look at our the door frame there behind the crystal glass, it does refract correctly as glass probably would, or crystal would. But no, it is not instanced. It should be. It's the best way to do it. But I'm only using 2 of them. I'm not going to make 100 in a room. Because I'm not making a game, I'm not going to instance those crystals. But you should. But we do have physics set up on them as well. So if I turn on simulate here and watch OBS drop my FPS through the floor, you see that our chandeliers do actually sway and move and twist slightly in the wind. So when we create our cinematic, they will be moving slightly. And I introduced some physics assets on light fittings and plants here and there in the interior just to give a bit of movement and life inside of the building. But no, they're not instanced. You should instance them, but I'm not going to because, yeah, I'm making a cinematic, not a game. But this curtain is instanced. The tassels on this are instanced. Hardware instanced. Concept Dev says it looks great, but I built one for a game, but worried it was huge poly count. We'll look in. Yeah, do instance it. Do instance it like I have here on this curtain for the tassels. That's the best way to go. You reduce your draw calls, you reduce your poly count, you reduce your texture count. But I don't know how high the poly count was on the chandelier that you did. Those chandeliers in that room, I think, are about, I think they're about 15,000 polys from memory. They're not huge. I mean, 15,000 polys in a game now is not much. That's pretty average now. So they're not massively, they're not like 100,000 polys or anything, they're only about 15,000 polys. So yeah, but instancing it is still going to be the best way to go, because you'll cut down dramatically your number of draw calls and poly count that way. And those crystals are a good example of where you would want to instance it probably. I'm just being a bit lazy. We've been working on this project now for quite a while, and I'm keen to get the cinematic started. So I want to get the interior finished. So yeah, do instance it. Be the best way to go. Just going to scale you up a little bit more. I'm going to pull that in. Concept Dev says, do you mind me asking how long? Always wonder how long it takes artists. How long has this... Are you asking me how long it's taken me to build this building and the environment? Is that your question? I'm just going to pull that over. Because do remember, our environment, we didn't start with the interior of the building. We started actually with the actual environment. We made the environment before we brought the building in and started working on the inside. So if you're asking me how long this level has taken me to create so far, is that your question? If it is, then we've been working on this now for probably, I've been working on Twitch on this level for about, I don't know, maybe 2 months. Yep. This level so far has taken about 2 months, but do remember I'm only doing it 2 hours twice a week. I don't do any work on it when I'm not streaming. Everything I do is when I'm streaming. I only stream on a Monday and Tuesday for 2 hours at the moment, so 4 hours a week for the last 8 to 12 weeks. That's how long it's taken me here. Simply because, like I said, I don't get the time to work on it when I'm not streaming. So yeah, 4 hours a week for the last, say, 9 to 12 weeks to create what we've got here and our interior. So that's about how long it's taken us so far, and I'm keen to get it finished. I'm just going to make sure this is in the right spot here. I'm going to grab one of the shears and then we may call it a day. So I just want to grab my shear. Where is my shear? There it is. Again, let's rotate that around. Go for Xenon is asking me what my next project will be. I don't know. I'm probably going to create another model that I put in my store for sale. So it's probably going to be, we're going to be doing something like we did with the garden terrace. So I'm going to make a model in Max, texture it up, probably in Mari, and render it out in Eon View using photogrammetry, because a lot of the guys are interested in finding out how to do photogrammetry. So I'm going to show you how to do it using photogrammetry. And then we're going to do a render in Eon View like we did with the garden terrace. So yeah, the next project will be photogrammetry, how to do photogrammetry, and rendering it in Eon View, and just fixing the model up in Max and doing any texture correction in Mari. Yep, that's the next project, Go for Xenon, after we finish this one. That's why I'm keen to get this one done so we can move on to the next one. Just going to pull these forward a bit more. There we go. I'm actually going to scale this shear in because I don't want it covering the entire window like that. We want to be able to see some of our cushions and things when we put them in there behind it. So a little bit more. I think my angle might be a bit off on that curtain. It is. There we go. Okay. I think we may leave it there for today, guys. I will be back on again tomorrow, where we'll finish doing a bit more work here on our building, in our environment, so we can start creating our cinematic. We're getting there, slowly but surely. I do want to thank you guys very much for hanging out with me and for watching. I really do appreciate it, guys, so thank you. Thank you to the Hambone, to Keds, and to Eddie for following the channel. And second favourite too, sorry I missed you earlier. Thank you very much, guys, for following my Twitch channel. We'll be back on again tomorrow at 5 PM Pacific in the US, which is 10 AM in Australia, 1 AM in the UK. Again, thanks for hanging out with me, guys. Hopefully I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good night, guys.